conversation. I don't like it, but it's definitely one we need to be having right now. I want to switch gears because we're
Yeah.
coming up against top of the hour. Dr. Nathaniel Berg, the chairman of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. We played, was that last week, sir? The week before? We played a bunch of clips from an interview we did with him, and just in hearing his responses to some of our basic questions about concerns that were raised at the oversight hearing that was held on the Health Professionals Licensing Office and the GBME board, I just could not believe my ears. I mean, I think it's clear any reasonable person who listens to Dr. Berg's comments or reads his comments in the media that I feel like I'm giving a vote of no confidence in his leadership. I mean, it's clear there's something that is preventing him from carrying out the duties of the GBME. Not, I mean, these aren't even suggestions. We're talking about laws. Like the GBME is mandated by law to do these things that Dr. Berg keeps complaining are so difficult to do. We've had, people filing complaints. Complaints are disappearing. People filing complaints they feel are very legitimate. They're basically being, the board is saying there's nothing to it, right? So I feel like I'm at a point where I don't know why people aren't calling for his resignation, but
Well, it's funny you brought that up because
is it?
yeah. Well, when I heard some of it, and the first question that was asked of him, who was the one that was doing the interview? By the way, I was just looking at the. I'm not sure who was doing the interview with Dr. Berg.
It was our Daniel Perez. He's our public health reporter. Yeah.
Okay, Daniel Perez. Yeah. He asked a question and Berg did not answer it. It was a good question. He didn't answer most of Mr. Perez's questions at all. I mean, he just skidded through the whole thing. I mean, he's notorious for doing that. He has a gift of gab, granted. And then, I think that people Guam can see right through it, right? Yeah. I mean, you can see right through it. He didn't answer the question. He kept bringing up the speaker's name like it's her fault. I think he brought my name up about, right beside the speakers, like Speaker Chalahi and Senator Tello Taidagui, and that we're doing this and that. I go, no, what we're doing is we're trying to work to help the board to accomplish what the intention of this board was to do, and is to protect the safety and welfare of our island, as well as to ensure that the doctors that they allow to practice on Guam are good doctors. We don't need to settle. For Dr. Berg to say anything like, oh, well, the specialists, we won't be able to bring these doctors in because we're so hardcore on what we request for, it's absolutely not true. Number one, this island would never be able to get a specialist to stay on Guam and home base on Guam. We don't have the population to support that type of specialist, on this island. What is happening, though, is that we're bringing in doctors every 6 months, like SDA brings the specialist that comes in for about 3 weeks to a month. That's good. We're getting those individuals coming in, and I can guarantee you those individuals have medical malpractice insurance. They do, anyone that comes in. But, you mentioned earlier for his actions and what he's been doing. One, he's been sitting on the board for doggone forever, and it's almost like a power trip with him. It's about power, it has nothing to do with the safety and welfare of the people of Guam. So we as a legislature, we confirm individuals. We confirm individuals and optimistic, there's that word, to ensure that they do a good job. But what happens when they don't? And it's a political year right now. So do you really think that the governor is going to ask Dr. Berg to step down and appoint somebody else? I don't think so. But we're the ones that confirmed this individual. So I think what I'm looking into right now is finding out if legislation can be created to actually out a board member, that's been confirmed by the legislature. If we can put them in, there's no reason why we as a legislature can't take them out. Of course, we're going to need 10 because the governor will probably veto it. But I think with good cause. And if we were to take this on the floor as a bill to remove Dr. Berg from his position, because I can tell you one thing. I've heard from other physicians that they keep saying Berg doesn't speak for us.
Yeah, I hear that too. And I hear that, but I want to see it. You know what I mean? Like, and I just got to go back to this hearing, the hearings that we had on Bill 112, the controversial medical malpractice reforms, and the doctors that begged the senators, let us police ourselves, right? And this GBME is exactly the body that is supposed to be policing the doctors. But when you hear the chairman speak, I mean, I don't think I've ever heard him talk about protecting the patients. It all seems to be about the comfort level of doctors who are coming here, and if we have to post their records, then they're not going to want to come here and serve the people. It just really, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little more optimistic than you are just for today, but I feel like we haven't yet engaged the governor in this conversation. So she's a nurse, and I'm pretty sure she understands the dynamic of patients, and when they feel they've been wronged by doctors, and maybe she just doesn't have eyes on this situation, and maybe, I don't know, maybe someone should write a letter to her so that she can find out what's going on. I mean, I know it's in the media everywhere, but I just still think there's that avenue, right? Because the governor could force his resignation. I mean, I don't know if that would happen, but maybe she's just not aware of how egregious the situation appears to be to a lot of people who are not just outside looking in, even patients who have filed these complaints, and even board members like Dr. Annette David in a media report the other day. She was also saying, like, hey, wait a second, are we really doing the best job that we can do? So I think you're starting to see the cracks in the GBME board, and I don't know if it's just a matter of the votes, right? If they have the votes to remove Dr. Berg, or if he has the support, because he's definitely a wheeler and dealer.
I would rather see, the members of the board to remove him myself, but they won't do it because they're pretty much protecting themselves. And that's the big issue here. There is no balance on either side. You're getting a few doctors who realize that the medical malpractice mandatory arbitration is really not fair. It's been questioned on being unconstitutional at some point. But the problem is, I think here is the lack of balance on both sides. You have to think of the patient, and who you're serving, and of course the doctor as well, and protecting his interest on both sides. But there is no balance with Dr. Berg. It's all about, whatever I can do to protect these doctors, and so they will be my best friends.
Senator, I would normally say, like, wow, you're going out there with those comments, but I think anybody who's listened to these interviews that we've done with Dr. Berg, who reads, media reports and other media about just what he's saying on its surface, if you just look at his words, it's clear to me that his intention is to really just to protect the doctors. I mean, other doctors are saying it too. They're complaining to me that he's making them look bad, and it's going to lead to this. You know what I mean?
And that's what's really, coming out now. And that's why I'm hearing from other doctors, that, hey, he doesn't speak for us. We don't believe in that philosophy. And I think that's so true. So in the meantime, my office is looking at legislation that will be created that we can maybe, out Dr. Berg from being being on this board. Like I said, if we put him in there and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing in the best interest of the people of Guam, as well as the doctors, like I said, it's a balance, a balance that we need on both sides to understand that as we move forward. And that's including on the medical malpractice arbitration, Bill 112. So I'm hoping we can address that bill. I know the speaker wants to have one more public hearing on it with amendments being made to one that we introduced earlier. And I think that balance will be in there. And I just most especially ask and plead with those who are listening today, we need your help to bring that balance in there to protect our people, to ensure that we will get better health care. I really, truly believe, with all the research and heartache and being thrown out from another doctor, who's probably a friend of Berg's, that I believe that if this bill were to go through and we repeal it and bring that balance, a more fair playing ground for both sides, I really think that we will get that better health care that we need on this island. And the majority of us will be here to get that health care instead of having to get on a plane and fly away to be taken care of. Because we know when a doctor takes care of us somewhere like at Cedar Sinai or off island in the States, when you walk into that office, they're going to try and find out what's wrong. They're going to provide those tests. and see. Here on Guam, it's like take an aspirin and call me if it comes back later, or, you know, a couple of days later, and then it could be too late. We need better healthcare. And I think this bill is actually going to provide that better healthcare. And if doctors or Berg is saying that, oh, we're going to lose our doctors, where are we going to lose them to? Seriously, they would have to pay for medical malpractice insurance, you know, elsewhere. We're the only jurisdiction here where doctors feel they don't have to have medical malpractice insurance because they're so well protected by this law that they don't have to. So that's got to tell you something. So I'm just praying and hoping that everyone listening, you know, please, you know, stand up, support this change, you know, for better healthcare on this island. And we can do it. This step will be a great opportunity to do it.
Right, guys. And I just want to read off the membership of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. It's Dr. Nathaniel Berg, who's the chair. Phil Flores is the vice chair, and he's the public member. Annie Berdallo, Dr. Annie Berdallo is a member. Dr. Aranya Adolfson is also a member. Dr. Annette David, Dr. Louis Cruz, Dr. Scott Shea. But you know what I see here? I think that, and I know the speaker had said that she's working on some legislation relative to the GBME, but I really feel like we need a couple patient advocates on that board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I mean, I'm kind of freaking out that they don't have any patient advocates on that board.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, if you just look at the makeup of this board, it's all well-off doctors, like literally. Yeah. And that one member from the public owns a bank. So I'm just not sure that the perspective is there for the common folk. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Senator, for your time. I'm going to catch up with you maybe in the next week because I know that you've seen these documents circulating relative to the ethics investigation into Congressman San Nicolas. I mean, this stuff is, I was reading it last, little bedtime reading. And so I know you said you're reading it too. It's going all around the place. So maybe we can catch up on that in the next week or so.
Lots of interesting things. And I ask that you stay online I think it's 10:30 today. We have a public hearing on the veterans, you know, to stop the governor from, you know, taking funding reserves from the veterans and not allowing them to spend their full allotment. And then there's some things that came up. I had to FOIA, found out that there were